Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my channel. I can assure you on this channel, we're gonna make your chemistry to be one of the most interesting, subject on planet Earth. So without even wasting much of your time, just want you to begin to understand from the very introduction. I'm going to explain to you what is chemistry. So you begin to understand, when we talk about chemistry, you need to have at least a working understanding, you need to begin to master those basics. Now, what is chemistry to start with? Because, we cannot just begin and we assume that everybody, you understand what is chemistry. Now, chemistry, ladies and gentlemen, this is the study, of matter. I think this is one of the basic question whereby they have asked you before, what is matter? And of course, the answer was matter is anything that what occupy space and just got mass. Now, did you pick that? It's anything. Now, listen to the word anything. What does that mean? It means anything that occupies space. So we are in this, beautiful globe. I'm talking about the universe where we are. So we are surrounded, with this space. But if you observe, the space around you is not empty. It is surrounded, by million, billion, trillions of either macroscopic or microscopic particles. So some of the particles are small. You can't even observe them, but they are occupying, the visible space. For instance, the very space where I'm touching, there are different types of what? Gases, for instance, in the atmosphere, So in chemistry, we study, matter. And we say matter is simply anything that occupy space and just got mass. Now, what do I mean when I say just got mass? Don't panic. Go to your periodic table and you find, elements, which have been arranged in a certain way. So you find there will be hydrogen, you're going to find there will be things such as helium, etc. Now, those elements, if you observe, all of them have got what you call a mass. So there's a mass number. So mass, including yourself as a human being, you've got a certain mass. The particles around us, they've got mass. So when you go into chemistry, we are studying different phenomena. We are studying, matter, not just matter, but we also want to study, the properties of that matter. But before we go further, because I know some students, maybe they've never done chemistry before. Maybe this is your first time and you just need, a working foundation. So if you are a new student to chemistry, don't even sweat. In chemistry, we study matter. Matter is simply anything. It could be your cell phone, anything. It could be your furniture, anything. It could be your television, anything. It could be water. So anything that occupy space and just got mass. Now, by now, because we've got different types of students, we need to know matter exists in how many states? 3 states. Matter can be a liquid, it can be a gas. I love gases, in the atmosphere. We've got different types of gases, you see. So if you projected yourself, so let me go live in the atmosphere, there you encounter oxygen, you encounter carbon dioxide, you're going to encounter hydrogen, etc. So we've got these different types of gases, and the gas, which is the most abundant gas in our atmosphere, is nitrogen, So nitrogen occupy almost, is it 71 or 78%? I need to check. I think it's 78%, And then you've got oxygen, Oxygen about 20 to 21%. So you can see between two gases only. The two gases, they are almost, occupying the entire atmosphere. Then the other gases, such as carbon dioxide, is just about 0.03%, in our atmosphere, etc. So take note, in chemistry, we are studying matter. We don't just end there, we study, the properties. I love that. I love that. Do you know why? When we talk about properties, I'm talking about what is it composed? What is it made of? I don't know. I think you've seen that the most brilliant scientists, oftentimes it's small kids, because if you give your small boy or your small girl anything to do with electronics, maybe your cell phone, they want to open, they want to dismantle. Don't stop them. That's a powerful, way of becoming a scientist, because to become a scientist, it's born out of curiosity. I want to investigate. I want to find out what is inside, So we said in chemistry, we study matter. Matter is anything that occupies space and it has got mass. Then we are also studying what we call properties, the behavior of matter. I like that. For example, if you guys want to fancy yourselves one day into maybe chemical engineering, you need to know the behavior of those chemicals that you are going to mix. How does chemical A and chemical B work if you mix them together? Are we going to cause an explosion, Oh, is it going to be work harmoniously? This and that, So we study, matter and its properties, its behavior, its composition. But we also study, the changes that matter undergoes. For instance, we can put a very simple example, that matter can change from one state to another. So maybe we are talking about, especially about water. Water can easily change from one state to another. Water can be a liquid. Water can be a gas. Water can be, which one did I leave out? It can be a solid. It can be a liquid. It can be a gas. So we've got, three states in which matter exists. So you need to begin to understand the changes that take place. Now, when we talk about changes, there's no need for you to panic. Just think about, for example, when you are considering issues of maybe the boiling point, the melting point, you see, this and that. So it's inevitable that you begin to understand that when we are talking about, you see, matter, find out the composition. What is this thing made of, So if you are going to become a powerful scientist, you need to develop that attitude. Maybe it must become an attribute within yourself, to investigate. You want to open something. You want to find out. Then not on that, we do a lot of what you call practical investigation, So you need to investigate a certain phenomena. So if we picked, for example, maybe sodium, and we mix with another chemical, for instance, your famous sodium chloride, which is your table salt, So you find you've got your chlorine, then you've got, your sodium. Then those two chemicals, they undergo a chemical reaction. So we want to observe the change from one state to another. So take note, you see that when we talk in chemistry, there's nothing difficult. Just develop, that love for the subject, begin to investigate. And as you are progressing in your studies, you see, you're going to begin to notice that there are certain chemical principles, that operate in our daily aspect. Almost everything around you involve chemistry. For example, when you are cooking, there are different chemicals that you are putting together. So don't be scared about anything. When you see people, they are talking about issues of matter. Matter is simply anything, that occupy space. So chemistry is the study of what? The properties and the behavior of matter. So that is our focus. So when you qualify as a chemist, maybe chemical engineer. Don't be shaken by those brothers and sisters who are already maybe in the field. They pass through the same thing that you are passing through today. They search under somebody. So chemistry is more like the engine, It is at the heart of many changes that we see in the world around us, So for you to begin to understand, you need to look beneath the surface of everyday observation. Become a good observer. Did you know the earliest scientists, if we can look into those guys, most of them, the way they discovered stuff, for instance, you can look at Sir Isaac Newton, you can look at Faraday and many other great scientists, you see. How did they discover certain thing? Very simple. Sometimes they could just out of curiosity, go spend some days, some weeks, some months on top of a certain maybe mountain, observing the things in nature. And what were they doing? Decoding, putting things down. Look, for instance, Charles Darwin, when he undertook that 5-year journey, out of England and he landed into the Galapagos Island in South America. What was Charles Darwin doing? Decoding, putting everything down. So in chemistry, you must also have a critical eyes for observation. So if, for instance, you set up an experiment, you are conducting certain experiment, be observant. Check the change, for instance, in color. Maybe observe the texture before you begin to perform your experiment. How was the texture? Then after, in terms of the outcome, the results, how is the color? Did the color change? Put it down. You need to take note of that. So understand all these things, guys. It's going to assist you. The next thing that I need to encourage you to understand is the atomic, world. So the atomic and the molecular perspective that we focus on in chemistry. Now, when I talk about an atom, I like that. An atom, it's the smallest particle, that you can find. So just like, for example, you've got different definition. For instance, when they say, what is a cell? So that a cell is the smallest basic unit of life. But what is an atom? The smallest basic unit of matter. By now, you know what is matter, isn't it? Matter, anything that occupy space and just got mass. Now, within matter, there is the smallest particle that you can ever think of, So the smallest particle, we call them atoms. And later on, we shall look into issues of molecular at molecular level, then later on into issues of the compound, this and that. So by now, you need to understand chemistry is simply the study of the properties and behavior of matter. Matter is the physical material of the universe. So the universe around you, when you opened your cute eyes and you observed what you see surrounding you, the physical, world. We are talking about liquids, solids. We are talking about, different types of gases, when the wind is blowing. So matter is the physical material of the universe. It is anything that has got mass and it occupies what? A space. Is it making sense? Are we understanding each other? If so, please then you need to subscribe to my channel. I'm just new on YouTube and I can assure you we're going to improve. So don't panic in case you see that my picture is not so clear, we're going to improve. So just as a matter of time, we're going to work onto the issues of the picture quality. It's still improving. We are still building up, you see. But begin to understand, those stuff that I'm dishing out to you. So I want you guys to become astute, become clever. I don't want to be a student with a lot of question marks, Begin to understand, what does this thing mean? When you sit down, with your fellow educated men and women, don't be shaken because, somebody come because they've got a master's, they've got a doctorate. They were once like you. You can also acquire, you can also obtain the same qualification just like them. So don't be shaken because of your past failures. You can still begin to understand chemistry. So a property, please take note of that. So in chemistry, when we talk of a property, what do we mean? A property is simply that is any characteristic, that allows you and I to recognize a particular type of matter and to distinguish, it from other type. You are able to see, certain characteristic of aluminium, and you are capable of distinguishing aluminium from copper, So once you are able to differentiate, you are able to master certain properties, any characteristic. I'm talking about property now. A property is any characteristic, that will permit you to know, to master a particular type of what? A particular type of a matter. Now, for you to know these matters, especially that you normally focus on, you must develop a love relationship with the periodic table. It contains elements. So oftentimes in chemistry, our work will be concentrated on that. So we want to see how do we work with these different types of chemicals. For instance, you guys want to make maybe an atomic bomb. Don't do that. It's not a good idea. But to make atomic bomb, they use chemicals, So if you have to look into those different stuff, such as, what do you call this, nuclear power station, they use chemicals. If you have to make, maybe cells, batteries, and all that, they use chemicals. If you have to produce fertilizer, they use chemicals, If the food, those things that used the chemicals that you use to preserve your food. So you need just to begin to understand, their physical attributes. How do you differentiate, silver from magnesium? How do you differentiate iron, from another metal? How do you differentiate a liquid, from a gas? How do you differentiate a metal from a same metal? Metalloids, etc. So once you start that, you are in a good direction, and I can assure you, you're going to become a very, very powerful, scientist. You're going to become a very powerful citizen, because, we want to develop you to become a responsible citizen. Is it making sense? So please, I need to introduce you. You need to begin to observe those tremendous variety of matter in the world around you. Indeed, there are plenty of matter that's around you, And experiments have been performed by scientists on the same matter that's around you. So there are different types of experimentation. How did they find maybe the issue of Pfizer, Johnson and Johnson? Maybe I also need to find my own, because I'm very annoyed as you see me. Maybe I'll talk about another stage, We need to wake up, guys. We cannot every time. It's like we know nothing. We know a lot of stuff. So we need to begin to understand, that the different type of elements, we can perform experiments on them, So chemistry will provide a good background for understanding the properties of matter in terms of the atoms, which they possess. So you need to start learning an atom. So when you go back to your notes, you check the structure of an atom. It's not complicated, So in the nucleus, you're going to find, the protons, which are, positively charged, and the neutrons, that don't have charges. Then you're going to find in the shells, including the valence shell, you've got electrons that have got negative charges, So there's the negative and the positive. Negative, positive, they attract each other. So there is an attraction between a positive and the negative. So the electrons, they are spinning, in those shells. So they've got different types of energy, So there is the first shell, which can only accommodate 2 atoms like that. Then the next will jump into the next, and not, did I say atom? Electrons, sorry, that means the word electrons. Then the next, etc. So begin to understand the issue of an atom. An atom is the smallest particle that you can find in matter. So in chemistry, I said it is inevitable that you give yourself a good background, a good understanding, of the properties of matter in terms of atoms. Find out their composition. What is it made of? What is an atom made of? I just told you, atoms are made up of protons. Protons are in the nucleus, They are stuck. They are bound. They don't move around like, the electrons. And those, protons, they've got a positive charge. Go on your cell phone, check on your cell, on your battery. You'll see there's a positive and there is a negative. Because that's how even the concept of electricity works, So electricity operates on that concept as well. So when the positive and the negative, they collide, then charges, then there will be electrical and all that will be sparked, this and that. Now, atoms, atom plus atom, they can cluster. And when they begin to cluster, what happens? Then we start now changing our narrative. We start thinking in terms of molecules. So in molecules, this is now the difference. In molecules, we've got 2 or more atoms, So it's now the difference. I used the simple mathematics, so I said atom plus atom equals molecules. Have you seen? So molecules are made up of 2 or more atoms, that are joined in a specific shape. So we observe that the atoms have got different types of shapes. And you're gonna find a moment for you to begin looking at different shapes, In fact, there's a topic one time we're gonna look into that, where we shall be looking into different shapes, such as you've got the tetrahedron, whatever they pronounce them. We'll look into that, you see. So you need to look into, for example, oxygen. Oxygen is diatomic. It is made up of 2, atoms. So you find when you check your oxygen, it will be 2 atoms. So that's why, for example, in carbon dioxide, have you seen CO2? Why is it C? 1 carbon and 2 oxygen atoms. But we'll look into those topics. I'm just introducing to you. So molecules are 2 or more atoms that are joined in a specific shape. So take note of that. But let's take a small commercial break. Then we continue. So you can take a glass of water. Thank you.